The labour market remains tight, with unemployment rising a fraction to 3.3% in the June quarter. Wage inflation pressures are also building momentum. To discuss, let's bring in Mark Smith from ASB Bank. Thanks for joining us, Mark. So it's a continuation from the March quarter. Unemployment still remains quite steady.
Yeah, extraordinarily low is really the takeout. The thing is, there is quite a lot of quarter-to-quarter volatility, but standing back and comparing to say, 12 months ago, where the unemployment rate was 4%, it's now 3.3, around record lows, and that's really the uptake. The labour market is extremely tight.
Why is it still tight? What's driving that?
Well, essentially, we've got two things. One is still quite marked skilled and unskilled labour shortages, and that's really a reflection of very low population growth we've seen over the last 12 months. The lowest population growth in around 30 years, and again, that's a consequence of the border restrictions, which have really had an impact on slowing net migration. Now we're seeing more people leaving New Zealand than actually coming in, and that's really having an impact on tightening the growth in the labour force and tightening the labour market in general.
Well, the border's now open. What's that going to mean for the next quarter?
Probably too early to say. The thing is, a lot of Kiwis have been stuck here for the last 2 to 3 years, and there's huge pent-up demand to go overseas and experience, what overseas has to offer. New Zealand is not really a high-wage economy, so the higher wages and better labour market conditions on offer across the ditch and also further afield will be major carrots for working Kiwis. So while we do expect some people to come into New Zealand, I think the outflow will more than offset that. So more Kiwis of working age will leave than come in.
Well, let's pick up on your point about wages. Wage inflation rose to 3.4%. That's about a decade high, isn't it?
Yeah, the highest since the global financial crisis, 2008. And probably the other major takeout from that was not only were wages picking up, but increases were becoming more broad-based. We're starting to see that upper tier, those 5% plus increases really come through. So the portion of increases of more than 5% rose to 20%, 26% of all wages and salaries. And that's, again, the highest since 2008.
Is there still room for wages to grow?
Yes, is a short answer. The labour market is extraordinarily tight. The cost of living is soaring. Most Kiwis are really hurting and feeling in the back pocket, and they're really seeking to be compensated for that. And the tight labour market provides them with good bargaining power. So the answer is yes, expect wage inflation to pick up from here.
Will it hit the same level as the Consumers Price Index, 7.3%?
Good question. At the moment, it's still lagging behind that. I think it will approach it and could potentially exceed it probably next year sometime. Again, that will depend on there being the labour market remaining tight. And again, that's going to depend on New Zealand. Net migration will really be the key going forward as well.
How long will the labour market remain tight for?
For quite a while, I think seems to be the view. Very widespread labour shortages, irrespective of skill. Again, that will depend on the economy doing reasonably well. We do expect it to slow, but there's still huge demand for workers in New Zealand and globally as well. So we expect the period of tight labour market conditions to persist for quite a long time to come.
How does the Reserve Bank interpret this data?
I suppose on the face of it, if you look at the unemployment rate, it did tick up a bit. So for some comfort for them to some extent. But the thing to note, though, the unemployment rate as it's measured, 3.3%, is well below where the Reserve Bank would consider to be a sustainable rate or a maximum sustainable rate, which they tend to characterise, which is probably around 4% or 4.5%. So yes, the unemployment rate did tick up, but it's still extraordinarily low. The other thing the Reserve Bank will be looking at closely will be developments in wages. There, the signs are pretty troubling for them. Not only are they picking up, but they're becoming more broad-based, and that really suggests they need to step ahead and move more aggressively OCR settings to get in front of that and try and bring that back down in time.
So another 50 basis point hike this month?
Yeah, 50 basis points. I think the odds of a 50, it's very much 50 basis points also signalling further rises to come as well. We expect the OCR to peak at the end of the year at 3.75%. If anything, risks are more heavily skewed towards the 75 basis point increase in August than a 25 basis point increase in August. But for now, we're sticking with 50 basis points.
Mark Smith, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.